Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars, some of my favourite people, and some of the UK's biggest legends. And we've got one for you today. Nicholas Parsons has been in my life as long as I've been on the planet and entertaining for, well, generations. He is still sounding about 25 to 35 years old on Just a Minute on BBC Radio 4. And I'm delighted to say he joins us now. How are you, Nicholas?
I'm well. You heard me laugh when you made that remark about 25 to 30 years old. I think perhaps my voice is younger than my years, which is very fortunate for me, but certainly in the number of years I've lived, is quite phenomenal at the moment. 95. I can't believe it myself, actually. I said once, and it's a lovely laugh here, on the Just a Minute show, I said that it came up quite spontaneously. I said, well, I think in my brain I'm many years younger than my age, but in my legs I certainly feel my age. And Paul Merton, bless his heart, said, well, it's a good thing it's not the other way around, isn't it? Otherwise you would go on a good long walk and not know where the hell you were.
He has such reverence for you, and what I love about Just a Minute is every single person, whether it's Julian Clary or even one of the new comics, they so admire and love you. I think that must be very special for you to know that you have that respect.
Well, you mentioned that, and I'm very flattered to hear it. I do have a lovely relationship with them all, and Paul Merton is very special. I've known him for years, since we first did a broadcast together many, many years ago. And I've always been a great admirer of his talent. And somebody said to me once, because he sends me out often on the show, but I think that I have an ability somewhere to be a good foil to comedians. Because I had a very successful partnership with Arthur Haynes for 10 years, where I was to get nice sort of laughs on character, and he had the gag lines. And I was able to feed in, so that's why he got known as a straight man, but I wasn't really a conventional straight man. I was an actor playing a role. But you know how to feed in the line so that the person coming back can get the best laugh possible. And maybe there's something instinctive in the way I work that I'm able to feed in other people lines and thoughts and ideas, which helps them to excel. I don't know. But anyway, it does mean that I have some very good friends in the world of comedy, and I've worked with a lot of them.
What's interesting about what you do on Just a Minute is the ad-lib, the getting in and out of the questions. But when they come back at you, the speed in which you reply is incredible. Do you think you're born with that talent to ad-lib and be funny?
I don't know. I just think that's experience. I've been in the profession long enough. I've done many different things. I mean, starting as an impersonator, so Carol Levis' Discovery, if anybody can remember that name, and then doing more sort of variety things, and then becoming a legitimate actor, serving my time in rep, playing a different part in a different play every week, and learning my ability, as we say in show business, to walk a stage. And then I got a lot of work in the theatre as an actor, and then I started doing more variety work, and then I started doing cabaret, which is and there was in the 60s and the 50s particularly, a whole cabaret scene in London. The trouble is about the British, particularly I think the English, once you do something well, you get labelled for it. So I've been labelled a cabaret artist, a comedian, an actor, a game show host, a quiz show host, all these things. But the thing is, I'm all of them. I'm a performer. In America, if you do more than one thing, you get credit for the diversity of your talent. But in this country, they seem they want to confine you and help you if you do something well, stick to it. And some people do and make a good living at it, but I've always loved diversifying and do as many different things as possible. And I suppose it's all that vast experience in all areas of show business that has helped me to be very natural and spontaneous with people, as you say, in between the set pieces when they are talking on the subject that I've given them.
We look at the world around you. At 95, it must be fascinating to you to still be current in a world that is unrecognisable from the one that you were born in. I mean, the changes just in the last 20 years are extraordinary.
Absolutely. I think the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that it's so much more violent world now. I mean, when I was young, living in Grantham to begin with until I was 8, but, people didn't lock their doors in. There was such trust and honesty everywhere. we certainly did in London.
Yeah.
But people didn't. And you could walk the streets with confidence. Your parents would send their children out on errands because they knew they wouldn't be accosted or get into trouble. There wasn't a lot of traffic around, admittedly, but that is what's the worst thing that's happened, is the violence and the aggression and the in our society today, which is quite frightening. I mean, we not only lock our doors, but we all have burglar alarms and things like that, and on our cars and everything.
Where do you think that came from, and when was the first time you realised the world had changed and it had become a different place?
Well, you don't realise it overnight. It's been a very gradual change. Getting, during the war, which I was a youngster during the war, and then I was working on Clydebank, reserved occupation in the merchant navy. I mean, there were people, soldiers, wandering the streets with guns, but everything was completely safe and everybody was secure. And it was slow deterioration after the war, more into it was quite trusting and wonderful, the 50s, where I remember them with great affection. And then it slowly deteriorated from the 60s and 70s onwards. It's been a very slow, gradual change. And it's getting worse. There's more violence. There's more. And you can find different reasons, but it's a combination of a number of reasons. And we've become more ethnically diverse because, before the war, people didn't travel very much. And now, of course, anybody can travel anywhere with aircraft. It's amazing to think that before the war, there was no such thing as air travel when I was young. And it was and then trains were quite limited. And people didn't go abroad for their holidays. No. That only started, when cheap air flights came in, which was, I did summer seasons and around the country, in Blackpool and Scarborough. Those were the places. Everybody went to their holiday to a seaside resort in this country. And a lot of people went to Blackpool because they had lots of shows on, and Scarborough and other places like that. And then slowly cheap travel abroad came in, and these places as resorts, slowly they change. They're still there, and there's some activity going on. But it's amazing to think most people now think of where they're going to go on their package holiday, in which country, whether it's Spain, Italy, or even the Middle East or further. Yeah. But everybody just went down to the seaside.
And who would think it's cheaper to fly to Benidorm for the weekend than it is to get the train to Blackpool?
Well, yes, because the trains are quite expensive, aren't they?
It's crazy, isn't it?
I think it's sort of people are a little bit more old-fashioned and steeped in their ways and would like to see some British entertainment. I was, I think it was 1962 or something with Arthur Hayes. We were at the Winter Gardens, topping the bill there. Ken Dodd was topping the bill at the Opera House. And then you had the circus, of course, Billy Smart Circus, and things. And then at the pier, there was Tommy Cooper. And they had any number of names and any number of shows. Oh, in the theatre, there was... I've forgotten the name. There was a play on. It was a tremendous theatre, and all the theatres were all packed. We did capacity every night. Yeah. And you have certain weeks. You say, "What week is this?" And they say, "Well, this is the Waits week from a certain part of Lancashire," and you'd have mostly Lancashire folk in, or mostly Yorkshire folk, because there was a national, not a national. It was that's when most people took their holiday in Yorkshire.
Yeah. And I think even the Scottish, don't they have a couple of weeks when they come down to Blackpool?
They have, yes, because it's called the Fairs, Week of Fairs. Yes. And because I was Glasgow very well, having spent many years there trying to be an engineer to please my family, and there for most of the war, until I collapsed, was in hospital and then was discharged and everything. And so, yes, it's called the Fairs. It's the Glasgow Fair Week and then the Edinburgh Fair Week. And all the factories and the firms. But you see, you don't have the industry we had before. You think on Clydebank, you could go down the Clyde, a famous trip called Noondawatta, and all the way down the Clyde, there were shipyards and engineering yards, and you could have a clang of hammers and making ships and other parts for ships. And now it's very quiet. There's hardly anything there.
We talk about the world...
Which we had and was the basis of our financial success, and probably how we built our empire, because we had all this money and entrepreneurial skills. But all that change is gone completely. So on seeing it go, you accept it, and you move into an... And that's, I think, the great point in surviving, is being able to accept the changing attitudes and changing premises that occur within a society.
Every generation has its own problems. You're almost twice my age, which is an interesting insight that you must have on Brexit and Trump. Should we be as worried as the media lead us to believe, or will we all get over this and carry on regardless?
Well, to be quite truthful, I voted to remain because I felt our prosperity would be much better served. And I think it's been proved that way. But Brexit has happened, and you support it because it's there. But all the arguments going about a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, the customs union, which is not on the news today, and all these things that are a part of it, I'm utterly confused, I'll be honest. I just hope the politicians know what they're talking about, and we will come out of this negotiations with the European Union. You see, one has to accept the fact that the European Union do not want Britain to leave the European community. So they're naturally making every kind of obstacle to make it difficult. And so the negotiations must be horrendous. And I don't know what they're going to get at the end of it.
And so complicated.
At the end of it.
I understand there's...
The Irish border, of course, is a nightmare. Because it's Ireland is in the EU and with the Euro, and Northern Ireland is not in the Euro. It's part of the, which it is. It's part of the British Isles. On the pound, I don't think how they're going to resolve that border problem.
Somebody told me that apparently if they go through all the legal papers, it will take 8 years for the legal teams to read them to just get to the bottom of where we start in negotiating.
Yeah,
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And I just think it's so sad that when people were told to vote, I don't think enough was explained about the implications of what the long-term results would be if they voted one way or the other. And I think a lot of people, not understanding it, voted for Brexit, which is a pity, because I would rather have seen and I think we should have become a force.
And they were misled when they were told we were going to get new hospitals every week with the money we were saving. It was not true.
But not only that, I think some people who were not very intelligent thought it meant getting rid of all the foreigners. Well, first of all, a lot of the foreigners over here contribute tremendously to our economy.
Of course.
But you don't just suddenly say to everybody, oh, you're not born British, so go back to where you came from. It's impossible. And they're so naive, some people, because they don't follow the news in depth. I think they voted by instinct. And we're in this dilemma at the moment, which the politicians are trying to sort out. And I'm glad I'm not a politician involved in the negotiations, because I think they're intangible.
Yeah, me too.
But they will get some results, of course. They'll have to. They need to.
Do you raise your eyebrows every day as you watch the news and see our world evolve? I mean, you've been around for nearly 4 generations of children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It must be interesting for you. Where do you see the future? Are you optimistic?
Yes, I always have been optimistic. I'm an actually optimistic person. But you like to see signs of hope and so forth. But you just accept the changes that are coming, and some of them, which I described, are not as happy, because I think it was a much more peaceful and happy and contented world. I mean, I think also if you live through a war, which I did, and we didn't know where we were going to survive, I mean, it was touch and go for a time, particularly after Dunkirk. And I think we owe a lot to Winston Churchill, who was an inspirational leader. He was a real orator. He could rouse the nation. And we held on. We had the Navy, of course, but that's about all we had. Because after Dunkirk, we didn't have any... Well, our equipment was we left on the beaches of Dunkirk and elsewhere. And slowly, we built up our resistance to the Germans, and then eventually America came in. But in the meantime, Hitler made the ridiculous... He thought he could conquer the world, which he tried to. And he invaded Russia. and he got very far. And then the Russians were amazing. They called a halt, said no further. Stalingrad was the turning point when there was a battle for Stalingrad, and they were told the truth, where they couldn't retreat any further. And of course, then they were stuck down there in the Russian winter, and the Germans couldn't carry on. Eventually, they had to retreat from Russia, and then we invaded, and it was having lived through all that and seen us go from a position of having what on paper seemed no hope, and a lot of people thought we should capitulate after Dunkirk, to the strength we achieved and the victory eventually in Europe. And then, of course, the involvement of the common market, which was a brilliant idea, bringing together countries which had been at loggerheads with each other, and now we're all working together with the same thing. And that's why I'm sad about Brexit, but that's nothing to do. It's happened, and they've got to get the best they can from it. And we're back to Brexit. I came to talk about show business, and I'm talking about politics.
But this is what's interesting.
I was once asked to stand as a politician, but I turned down the opportunity because I was think I'd have been elected because it was a strong. I'm a liberal. It was a strong liberal stronghold then, which was in Yeovil, and the person they adopted when I turned the opportunity to stand down was Danny Ashdown, and it proves that they were a liberal. I might have been him, but I thought very clearly after they offered me the opportunity to think, no, I'm fascinated by it. I prefer to make a career in show business, and I concentrate on that, because if you're going to make a success of anything, you've got to give all your energy to it.
How at 95 are you able to sit here so relevant, so current, so up to date with the news, so sane, so unbitter, so inspired, and so encouraged to live life to the full? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? You do realise you're 95. It's incredible.
No, I don't sometimes realize I'm 95. But sometimes when I'm walking and my legs are a bit wobbly, and I do have a stick now when I walk, and I'm aware of the fact that I probably am getting on a bit, but you don't think like that. You can't think like that. You've got to think positively all the time. And when people say, when I have been asked, what do you think you owe some of your old age to? And I think I can't know evidence to back this up, but I think it's probably it's true, that I think it's by using your brain positively and all the time. It helps not only to keep your brain working well, it also helps to keep you young physically as well. And I think actually scientists will say that is a fact. Because you think of the other people. Some people have had a regular sedentary job and then retire at 65 or 70, and then they just stop and they just potter in the garden or go to the pub or something, and they slowly fade away. But I think if you keep using your brain, keep thinking positively, and keep working, as I've always done, I think you do go on a bit longer than other people.
And I guess the legacy will be carried on by the family, and family is something that's so important to you.
Absolutely, as family, yes. I mean, I was thrilled. I had a difficult childhood because my parents didn't understand the fact I wanted to be an actor, and the fact that I was always fooling around. They thought I was a bit of an idiot. And you know, you came from a very conventional, middle-class professional family, and you expected to sort of follow in that tradition. Well, I didn't. I didn't want to. I wanted to go quite where it came from. I don't know, but I wanted to be a performer, and I used to fool around as a youngster and get told off for it. I used to fool about at school and get caned for it. But what I say in my one-man comedy show, which I do around the country, is that, well, all I can say is now, when I was younger, I got caned for getting laughs, and now at least they get paid for it.
And you entertain the nation doing it.
Oh, yeah. But you see, it's such a changed world, such a changed attitude. The first school I went to was, the kindergarten was fine, but then when I was in the 8 years of age, I mean, if your parents could afford it, they sent their boys to boarding prep schools, and hardly anybody could afford it today. But in those days, it was quite possible. My father was a doctor, he was a professional man, but he could easily afford that. But it was utterly, utterly miserable. 2 years of misery. You see, the parents never came. They didn't know what was going on. The masters were men who'd been damaged, I think, in the First World War and were wreaking their vengeance on their frustrations on the boys in their command. And as I was always fooling about and trying to get laughs, which is my way of surviving, I was regularly being caned or slippered for all kinds of misdemeanors because I was, they called it unruly. I just thought I was having fun. After 2 years, I went to a most wonderful school, which was St. Paul's, and the prep school for the Collie Court. And I was so happy there because it's a wonderful school, wonderful education, has playing these games to a very high standard until the 3rd of September 1939 when that wretched war started. And I could have been evacuated with the school, but my parents thought I was a non-achiever, so they took me away. I got my matric. I was eligible, actually, to go to university when I was 16. And then my parents said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'd love to go back to school, actually. And they said, no, you're going to get a job. You're going to do something serious. And that's when my uncle took a hand and pointed out that I was very clever at my hands and I had a lot of tools, which is a lot of DIY for my mother. I used to take clocks to pots and repair them. I still do. And said, why didn't you become an engineer? Well, if I wasn't going to be an actor, I didn't give a damn what I did. And so, to cut a long story short, they got in touch with relations in Glasgow and got in touch with friends, and they arranged for me to begin an engineering apprenticeship on Clydebank. And I went with a very much more public school accent like that than I have today, straight from the protected atmosphere of a well-to-do professional middle-class family to the tough environment of Clydebank. And somehow I survived.
Incredible.
And journalists actually pointed out to me, I think it was again the actor within me, because I knew instinctively if I was going to survive in this tough environment where I was an oddball to them, I had to make a rapport with them like you do in show business. And somehow I found a way to communicate and make them my friends, and I became a mate. You know, they said, I'm not actually a crazy story. I mean, you come here with that World War accent, but this is life, you know, this is love it. This is what's going to be. I mean, you probably came with your Jew. And you're prepared to make us laugh and it's fun. That's right. And somehow they accepted me. And with my accent and my background, in fact, I was English, there was a lot of prejudice on Clydebank against the English then. And so it's one of the few things I'm really proud of.
I'm calling you today from Nottingham, next door to Grantham, where you were born. I wonder, of course, the other person other than you who was the most famous from there was the Thatchers, Margaret Thatcher. Did your family have anything to do with it?
The doctor to the, who was Roberts then, to the Roberts family.
Did you ever get to meet them, or in passing, obviously?
No, I went to the Grantham and Kestrel High School for girls, but that was in the kindergarten, of course.
Right.
Margaret Thatcher, I'm a little bit older than her. And so I wouldn't have known, would I?
No, that's right.
She didn't know I was going to be a successful performer, and I didn't know she was going to be a successful politician.
I'm sure she loved your radio show.
Only in retrospect do I know that my father, because he never spoke about his patients, he was a very discreet doctor.
Of course. Let's talk about your career highlights, because you have worked and met everybody over the years. I'm sure many of those moments have gone in the history of time, but just talk to me about some things you'll never forget, some people who touched you and really made you realise how... So many. How can you do it? I mean, some of them are not well known. We're working in rep with some of the people there. That was amazing. That's why I first met Kenneth Williams, because he came and guested in a show down there. Yes.
And I thought he was exceptionally talented. A lot of people don't realise that Kenneth, when he was younger, had aspirations to become a serious actor, and he was a very good serious actor. If anybody put a character role, as with Hancock's R.R., to have an unusual character, and his characters were so unusual, the voices became distinctive, and he got well known for his character voices, and that's the thing, if you read his diaries, he was actually proud of.
I read his diaries. I read his diaries whilst on holiday once, and it seemed he was tortured by his own talent. He never really embraced who he was and what his gift was given to him, really.
Well, his gifts were, as a serious actor, he won an award when he played the Dauphin in Bernard Shaw's St. Joan at the Arts Theatre. I saw him, and he was brilliant. And he wanted to be an actor and accepted as that.
Yeah.
He was self-educated. He came from a very humble home. Father was a barber in Marchmont Street in King's Cross, and they never understood their son. His mother adored him, and he was wonderful to his mother. But you see, he then became successful through these very funny character voices, and in the Carry On films and things like that. And in fact, Hancock actually got rid of him from the Hancock half hour because he didn't like all the laughs he was getting.
Oh, interesting.
And he said to the writers, Gordon and Simpson, he said, no, get rid of it. They're not. They're caricatures and not character. They were brilliant characters he was playing. And there's that wonderful place about the Tony Hancock sketch of the test pilot. And then suddenly they find they've got somebody else on board. Do you ever hear it?
Yes, I do. And that affectation he had was
so funny in that.
Yeah.
Hysterical.
Yeah, and that affectation, the sort of the voice became bigger than him, didn't it?
No, stop messing about there.
I'm not messing about.
In fact, I tell you, he enjoyed doing Just a Minute more than any other job because he had the chance to show off his knowledge and his erudition because he was self-educated, and he really enjoyed it. Ian Messiter, who thought of this story, would often give him erudite something to talk about. So he could do exactly this.
Incredible.
And it was, and he loved doing that show.
And possibly the best guest on any chat show in history. So entertaining.
And so I work with some of those wonderful people. I worked with dear old Ken Dodd in the midday music of the Midlands when he wasn't a big name, and I could see how he was going to become a big name. And you mentioned Ken because you just mentioned his name.
Yeah, I loved him.
And then, of course, I happened to team up by sheer chance with Arthur Haynes, and it took off. And we had that very successful partnership, the Arthur Haynes show with Nicholas Parsons. And in the 60s, we were the top comedy show in independent television. That was probably the most significant period of my professional life, because suddenly, from having done lots of different things and being professionally successful, I now became known to the general public to a top comedy show. And so my name was known. And so that was a big turning point. And then, of course, Just a Minute started. And I did a lot of other radio shows. I was in Much Binding in the Marsh for a time, doing the voices for Richard Murdoch and Kenneth Horn. And so my career has been very diverse.
And we haven't mentioned yet Sale of the Century.
Put my heart and soul into it and tried to make a success of it.
And we haven't yet mentioned Sale of the Century. Is that something you're proud of at this point, or was it a job?
No, it was a case of... I was proud of its success, but I was amazed at it. I wasn't even aware of how successful it was, because this wasn't an acting job. It was something which I found a facility to do, acquired the ability to become a quiz show host.
Right.
And the show took off. And we did have actually the most amazing viewing figures ever. And people think because it was so high profile, so significant, that must have been the highlight of my professional career. Well, it was a highlight in popularity, but it wasn't a highlight in professional satisfaction. Do you understand?
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, 21 million, I think, was the peak
I'm
audience.
I'm very proud of how successful it was, but it didn't give me the same satisfaction as the Arthur Haynes show, which I enjoyed. Or after that, I went back to the theatre and I got acting roles, and I starred for 15 months in Boeing in the West End, with only my name above the title. And that took off, and I'm very proud of that. Now, that is what I probably dreamed of doing when I was a young boy, playing a comedy role in a good play and having a success in the West End of London.
And so many plays in the West End. I mean, Rocky was another huge hit for you, wasn't it?
That was much later, because that was more of a diverse sort of thing. Because I'd done Charlie Girl and Say Who You Are and other plays. And then they asked me to do the Rocky Horror Show. Again, like a lot of jobs. At first, I didn't really want it. I thought, no. I'd seen a production of it. It wasn't very good. And the role of the narrator seemed a boring role anyway. But anyway, I accepted it.
Yeah.
And I took over from somebody. And I interpreted the role into my way of doing it. And it took off. And I became quite successful as a narrator in the Rocky Horror Show. I did 2 West End shows and did about 3 or 4 different tours. It was a wonderful period. I remember that with huge affection, because it was such an iconic show to be associated with.
Incredible. And as we leave this chat for today, and I hope to talk to you many times in the future, what else is there to do? I saw you in Edinburgh just this summer, knocking it out the park, a fabulous show at the Pleasance. You do it every year. Really incredible. You just being you, basically. What else is there left for you to achieve other than carrying on?
I have a show which I do around the country called Just a Laugh and Make with Nicholas Parsons, which is me talking about my life and career, and telling all the funny and ridiculous, outrageous and challenging anecdotes from it. But at Edinburgh, I have another show called The Happy Hour, Nicholas Parsons' Happy Hour, in which I do a bit of stand-up comedy. I engage with the audience and gag with them, and then I have guests, and that's a different show. It's not my stage comedy show. And I did it for the 15th successive season this year. It still was packed out every night, which was very, very flattering. And they want me to go back next year. Now, this is where you begin to think, wait a minute, have I got the energy to do another season up there? I did it originally, started by doing 3 weeks, then 2 weeks, and now 10 days. And that's quite enough. It's very demanding. Yeah. And because it's every night. Because, you see, I don't think at my age, this is where you do accept your age, because we started talking about age. Yeah. I don't think I could accept a role in the theatre now of doing, 8 performances a week. Right. I certainly couldn't do any more pantomime, which is 12 performances.
Yes, that's insane.
What I have to do now, if I do a show, I have to try and not take on too much the next day. And I have to pace myself, in other words. Yeah. So you do recognise your age and accept it, and you are made aware of it on occasions like that.
Do you get frustrated with it?
What's that?
Do you get frustrated by the restrictions of age?
It is sad to think I couldn't, if I was offered a part in the West End show, what a wonderful idea, but could I encompass it at my age? I don't know. One does think of the lovely story of A. Matthews, who lived till he was 90, but lived beyond that. And once when he was interviewed, he said, well, what keeps you going? He said, well, I wake up in the morning, I take the Times newspaper, and I turn first of all to the obituary columns, and if my name isn't there, I get up and get on with life.
I loved Ken Dodd's line when I asked him, will you ever retire? He said, no, you only retire from doing something you don't want to do what you do want to do, and I'm doing what I want to do already. It's a nice line.
Well, I have another phrase about that. I say I'm in a profession that retires you, because once you make a mistake and don't do very well, or the public tire of you, you are retired. Yeah. Because the public don't come to see you, and they don't pay to see you. So I'm not in a profession from which you retire. The public retires you when they think they've had enough of you.
I have interviewed people for 2 decades, and I have rarely met anybody with a brain as fast, as interesting, or as brilliant as yours. Nicholas, you're still a legend and a star, and I thank you so much for your time today.
Alex, you're so flattering. It's a joy to talk to you, isn't it?
You're inspiring.
To have so many compliments paid in 1.5 hour.
And I mean it. I want you to know we love you very much, and what you do every Monday night on the BBC, and you have done for over 50 years, is incredible. It never gets old. It's a testament to the format, but most importantly, the way you hold that together is inspired. You're a true gentleman.
That's a compliment, and I'm grateful to you. Thank you. And I send my warmest wishes to all the people who are listening or viewing at this particular moment, and long may you continue, and I'll keep going as long as I've got the energy.
We love you very much. Nicholas Parsons, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex.